whenever you come up with an idea for a story and you're making your list of people to interview, areas to look at, research to do, don't forget to collect data and statistics as well, so that you have some common numbers to bring to every interview, to bring to every context you're going to. This means that if you are writing a story on water conservation, you know how much water Bangalore gets in rain from the Kaveri, from different kinds of sources. You have an understanding of how much demand there is in different areas. This will bring a lot more richness to your story, and it will also give it a lot more authority when you're talking to groups of people and to people you're interviewing. So if you're trying to write a story about, let's say, waste of water in Bangalore or how to conserve water in Bangalore, you would need to know, what the demand of water is, what the supply of water is. You could probably find some of those data points on the BWSSB website or in academic research, but it's important to look for those data points because you cannot write a story about how to conserve water in Bangalore without actually knowing how much water you get, how much rainfall there is, where water is falling, where water is being used the most, where the highest demand is. These things give context to your story, so that it's actually a richer story in the long run. Data is a value you assign to a thing, like your height or your weight or your name. It's basically a label you give to a point of information. There's two types of data, qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative is like a descriptor, like a color, if it's good or it's bad. It's not really a number. Quantitative is when you give it a number assignment, like the number of pounds something is, or the height. That's a number. You're giving it a quantity. There's other types of subcategories of data, like categorical data, discrete data, continuous data. And these have to do with the types of numbers or groups that you're looking at. And that's only useful for when you're doing actual analysis. So it's actually good to know that discrete data is a whole number. You can't have 1.5 children, for instance. And continuous is continuous along the line of numerical values. So 1.3, 1.2, those are all continuous values. So when you're doing analysis on data, it's good to know that these are the categories that exist. You can get data from multiple sources. The government is the biggest collector of data. So you can get data through RTI. There's also open data portals like data.gov.in. State level, you can ask the department what data you need. It's located on websites. Even large NGOs like the World Bank and UNICEF have data banks that you can download data from. Anything you need, it's best to start off with a Google search, look for numbers or reports to see if there's data there, and then look for the source of that data. So if it's a department or a university, you can find data at those locations. When you add data to your story, think about a visualization to help bring the data alive to your readers. You want a visualization that makes sense for your story, whether it's charts or pictures or a map or an interactive graph. These are the things you have to come up with after you've written the story and how best you want to present the data and the story the data tells. So there's lots of resources for you to visualize. We'll put them up on a slide, and you can use those resources to make data more integral for your story. There's another type of story that you can write, and it's considered data journalism. And data journalism is when you start with a data set and build a story around it. For instance, you might go around your neighborhood and map all the points that have a garbage pile in them, a garbage black spot. And you might go around and say, why is there more garbage in this area as opposed to this area? And then you start asking questions, you start finding people to interview around why garbage is in places they are. Like, you might go talk to certain apartment buildings, you might go talk to the local corporator, but you're using the data set first, and you're collecting data first to actually understand the situation, and then building the context around that. That's a really good way of also finding a story if you don't quite know where you stand on it yet. You can go collect some data and start asking questions, and then get more data as you go along. But data is a really important part of journalism, and if you ignore it, you're not going to get the rich stories that have the authority they need to kind of make social change. So good luck and happy data finding.